Welcome, fourth semester Master of Arts in English students of Odisha State Open University. Welcome to this explainer. So today we're going to embark on a pretty fascinating journey that will fundamentally change how you view language. Literally, we're putting down our traditional grammar books and we are picking up our microscopes. We're going to adopt the scientist's lens to examine the very words you and I are using to communicate right at this very second.
Okay, so let's dive right into this exact course material. We're looking at PEG 401, Introduction to Linguistics. Our main goal here is to lay a rock-solid academic foundation for the entire rest of your coursework. Now, I know linguistics can sometimes feel, well, a bit intimidating, right? It's full of dense terminology and these highly abstract concepts. But by breaking it down systematically today, we're going to completely demystify this incredible field of study and show you just how intuitive it actually is once you know what you're looking for.
Here is our quick visual agenda for today's explainer. We'll be looking at the phenomenon of language, linguistics as a science, the specific branches of linguistics, language in society, and finally, why we even study linguistics in the first place.
All right, let's jump right into section 1, the phenomenon of language.
Now, right off the bat, language requires a pretty crucial shift in perspective. It is far, far more than just some random collection of words we throw together when we want to get a point across. It is actually a deeply rule-governed social institution. Just think about it for a second. Whether it's made up of sounds when we're speaking or symbols when we're writing, language is an incredibly highly organized, complex tool. It's the primary mechanism that lets human beings interact, share super abstract knowledge across generations, and quite literally build and sustain entire societies. It isn't just a way to express yourself, it's the fundamental structural framework of human cognition and collaboration.
And human language is entirely unique compared to any kind of animal communication. Let's look at its key properties. First up, we have arbitrariness. This just means there's absolutely zero natural inherent connection between a physical sound and its meaning out in the real world. Think about it. There is nothing inherently dog-like about the actual word dog. We just socially agree on that meaning. Next is productivity, which is basically our linguistic creativity. It's this amazing feature that allows us to create and understand a literal infinite number of brand new sentences using only a limited set of rules and vocabulary. Then there's duality of structure. This means we can take completely meaningless individual sounds, like the separate isolated sounds of C, A, and T, and combine them into deeply meaningful words like cat. Moving on, we have displacement. This is our unique human superpower to talk about things that aren't actually present right now. We can discuss historical past events, future plans, or even totally imaginary situations. And finally, cultural transmission. This means language is not biologically inherited in our DNA. A child born to English-speaking parents but raised entirely in Japan, they're going to speak Japanese. Language is learned socially from our environment.
Moving right along to section 2, linguistics as a science.
Okay, so here is a massive distinction you absolutely have to nail down as a modern linguist, the difference between prescriptive and descriptive grammar. Traditional grammar is often prescriptive. It acts a lot like the grammar police, basically. Prescriptive rules dictate how people should speak according to these formal, rigid, historical standards. But modern linguistics, it is primarily descriptive. As linguistic scientists, we don't judge at all. We objectively observe and analyze how language is actually used by real people in their everyday lives. We act a lot more like anthropologists or biologists. We recognize that all dialects, all language varieties, they're systematic, they're valid, and they are completely worthy of rigorous study, without assigning any arbitrary value judgments about what's quote-unquote correct or incorrect.
Because linguistics is an empirical science, it definitely doesn't rely on personal opinions or our feelings or assumptions about how language works. Nope, it relies heavily on the scientific method. Linguists gather vast amounts of data. This could be from real-time speech recordings, it could be parsing ancient historical texts, or even conducting extensive sociolinguistic surveys. They then meticulously observe and classify the patterns they find in that data. From there, they form hypotheses and stringently test those theories to uncover general, universal principles that apply across all human languages. So whether a linguist is analyzing acoustic sound wave frequencies on a computer, or they're studying how bilingual language is processed in the brain using an MRI machine, it is a rigorous, objective, and highly predictive science.
That brings us to section 3, the branches of linguistics.
Let's look at how language builds sequentially, literally from the absolute smallest units all the way to the largest. Think of it like building blocks. We start at the very bottom with phonetics, which is the study of physical speech sounds, literally exactly how your tongue and vocal cords move, along with phonology, which is how those sound patterns function within a specific language to distinguish meaning. Next, we build those sounds into words with morphology. This examines the smallest units of meaning.
For example, a morphologist would break down the word unhappiness into 3 distinct parts: the prefix un, the root happy, and the suffix ness. Then we take those words and arrange them into grammatical sentences with syntax. Syntax is the rule book that helps us understand the vast difference between the statement, she is reading, and the question, is she reading? Once we have fully formed sentences, we look at semantics, which deals with the direct, literal dictionary meaning of those words and phrases. And finally, we arrive at the very top with pragmatics, where the messy, real-world context totally shapes our actual interpretation. Pragmatics perfectly explains why asking someone at a dinner table, "Can you pass the salt?" is instantly understood as a polite request for physical action, and not a literal yes or no question about their arm strength.
All right, zooming back out for Section 4, Language in Society.
As we've seen, language is not static. It's a living, breathing thing that constantly evolves and adapts to its environment. And it basically varies in 3 major ways. First up, we have dialects. These are your regional variations. Think about how English sounds and functions differently in Odisha compared to London or Sydney or New York. And remember, it's not just about accents. It's entirely different vocabulary and grammar, too. Next, we have sociolects, which are variations based on social factors, like your age, your profession, or your class. A group of software engineers is going to use a completely different sociolect than a group of medical doctors, right? And third, we have registers. This refers to the different styles of language we just naturally switch between depending on our immediate situation. You instinctively use a highly formal register in your university essays, but you switch to a very relaxed, informal register when texting your best friend. A core tenet of sociolinguistics is that we value all of these incredibly diverse forms equally. Tracking these variations gives us profound insight into human identity, culture, and community.
And finally, Section 5. Why study linguistics?
Look, beyond just passing your 4th semester exams, studying linguistics has profound, practical benefits that are absolutely going to stay with you for life. It fundamentally sharpens your analytical and critical thinking skills because it forces you to constantly examine logical structures, unseen rules, and really complex patterns in everyday data. It also deepens your cultural empathy and global awareness by revealing just how closely language is intertwined with a person's tradition, worldview, and personal identity. But perhaps most practically, for a lot of you, it unlocks incredibly diverse, future-proof career paths. A deep knowledge of linguistics is highly sought after right now, not just in traditional fields like teaching and translation, but in rapidly growing tech sectors. Think about speech therapy, computational linguistics, artificial intelligence. Literally every time you use machine translation or you speak to a virtual assistant on your phone, you are interacting directly with applied linguistics. It just makes you a more precise, culturally aware, and capable communicator in absolutely every aspect of your life. So, as you embark on the rest of your master's program here at Odisha State Open University, I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder. If language isn't just a collection of random sounds, but rather this highly structured scientific system that connects directly to human cognition, culture, and society, how do the words you choose shape the reality you experience? Keep that question in mind, apply that scientist's lens to the world around you, and I promise you are never going to look at a simple conversation the same way again. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and happy studying.